Hey, Dana.
Yes, sir.
Uh, hey, how are you?
Doing fine. You?
I'm good, thanks. Hey, did the committee members get an individual link to this, or?
Yes, they should have.
Okay, just making sure. I was going to say because the first link that I had written down on my calendar didn't work for some reason, so I had to go back into another place and look for a new one. So I didn't know if that was part of the reason or not.
I'm not sure. There was one that was sent out today that I received.
Gotcha.
Champaign County panelist for facilities. So,
Yeah, and I wouldn't have gotten that. I just had to take it offline.
uh,
And so I must have taken it from the wrong spot the first time, but I thought maybe that's why nobody's here yet. But
yeah. Oh,
oh,
here Jim Goss's.
there's Jim. All right.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing fine. You?
Good. Looking for my there it is.
Hey, Dustin.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
How's things in your world?
Oh, it's great. I'm fighting with a Doberman here underneath me, though. So that's all I got to think it's tonight. Yeah, she just got spayed, and so she hasn't been to daycare for a couple weeks, and she is rambunctious.
Wrestling a Doberman. Oh, shoot. I forgot my packet.
You found your packet?
Yeah, it was sitting in the living room. I was looking through it. I just flat out left it there when somebody called me and I was walking around with the phone and I'm like, oh, shoot, I left it in the living room.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey guys, how we doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
You made it back home okay, huh?
Yeah, we had to cut it short because I had a landlady pass away, so I had to come home for a funeral. So,
Uh,
but it was good to get away. It was only a week, but the problem was I took my golf clubs along so I could practice because there's somebody that's in this meeting I really want to beat. I never got to play. I see you smiling there, big boy.
okay.
Yeah, Stanley, it ain't going to happen.
I'm trying to get strokes and I'm not getting anywhere.
Yeah, 2 or 3 I could give. No more.
I wanted a 3 on top of the 7 I usually get.
No. I'm not giving you 10 strokes on 9 holes.
Now, Dana,
Yeah.
is it fair when we're in match play and the big boy's got to give me strokes? Well, I'm teeing off and the big boy is walking by me every time I'm at the tee block. About time to hit one out of bounds, isn't it, Harp? About time to hit one out of bounds, isn't it, Harp? All day long.
All day long. He's just
Finally, I had him beat because he had to give me no strokes. Next hole, I hit one out of bounds.
And that's soon when he earned the name Sandbag and Stan.
Oh my. What are we doing on time?
Hi, Steve.
Well, I thought I'd unmuted myself, but I guess not. Now I am unmuted.
There you go.
Hey, guys.
Hey everybody, I think I killed my camera somehow, so I'm just going to stick with the audio.
That's all you need.
I'm here as well. I just timed out dinner poorly for my kids, so I'll turn off my camera and serve their plates. I'm here though. I can hear you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Okay.
Steve, I got 6:30, so
All right. Well, we'll call this meeting to order. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Jim Goss.
Goss Bikes motion. Got a second?
Seconded, Humphrey.
Second with Humphrey. All right. All in favor of approving the agenda signified by, well, yeah.
Gotcha,
Okay.
gotcha.
We will do the
Moxie,
roll call. Yes. Thank you, Dan.
she is present. Rodriguez. Taylor. Woken. Goss.
Yes.
Harper.
Yes.
Humphrey.
Yes.
Chair Summers.
Yes. Okay.
I don't believe I've made the list
Oh,
yet
we
then.
need Jenny
Lockshin's
Lockshin.
also here.
Sorry. I wasn't sure about that, Jenny. Thank you. So Jenny, you vote to approve the agenda, correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So moving forward, approval of the minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Harper.
Stan making the motion. Second.
Taylor,
Second is Taylor. Thank you. Dan, let's do another roll call, unfortunately.
Loxon.
Yes.
Rodriguez. Woken.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Harper.
Yes.
Humphrey.
Yes.
Summers.
Yes. So let the record reflect, Ms. Rodriguez has another meeting scheduled at the same time as I did as well, so she may be a little bit late getting here.
and Taylor is now here.
Yes.
So
Thank
Hey,
you.
Steve, did we,
Yes.
Steve, did we do a roll call?
Actually, I think you're right, Stan. We did not do a formal roll call. We
I'm
do,
here.
however, have a quorum. I'm not going to worry about it too much. We've already had roll calls for the others. We don't need to wear out Dan's voice anymore. I don't think. I'm not seeing anybody with public participation. Dana, you're running this Zoom. Anybody out there? Okay,
not heard anybody.
we will go
I
on then.
see Ben Beaupre, his hand is raised.
Okay, all right, Mr. Beaupre. Please address our committee. You have 5 minutes. Dan, can you hear me? Ben Beaupre, can you hear me?
Is anyone over in IT to be able to allow the public participants into the meeting?
That's an excellent question, Dan. I do not know.
I see them on the screen there, but
Okay,
Oh, I think I just got bumped to a panelist there.
all right, great. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Beaupre. Go ahead.
Okie dokie. Just wanted to say a couple things about the upcoming jail conversation on the agenda. Wanted to double check earlier today with the sheriff to see if my understanding was still correct about the dire situation if, you know, the worst case scenario happened, which would be like court ordered shutdown of the facility or some structural event failure forcing them to close the facility or move move those housed there to another location. There doesn't appear to be any safe plan to make that happen right away. Moving folks back to the satellite jail runs into all sorts of issues with having to keep people separated who would be a danger to themselves, to the staff. The ability to move those incarcerated to other jail facilities seems extremely limited and up in the air, depending on who would actually be willing to take them, especially during the pandemic. There's all sorts of problems with that, just with expenses and costs and whatnot, sure, but just the logistics of trying to get people to where they need to be for courts and all the legal issues, let alone when you're talking about safety, transferring of prisoners, and when they're in a secure facility, escape isn't really an option usually, but moving them around and about provides opportunities and dangers to staff, to other inmates. This is a situation that, regardless of how one feels about mass incarceration issues and, equity and criminal justice reform, the current situation, what we have right now, we're not good under any perspective, under any interpretation. We are in a bad spot. And so whatever this discussion is going to be, it really, really, really needs to include some way to make sure that if the worst happens, we're prepared and we're not going to put the lives of those officers, the staff, the people who are housed there, both innocent and guilty. We don't want to endanger lives with, just refusing to face a hard issue. And I know it's a tough call on a lot of these things, but that's why you're here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beaupre. We scroll through and see if there's anybody else. No, I don't think so. All right, give me just a moment. Okay. That will end public participation. Any communications from the committee? Hearing none, I guess that will move us on to new business and our sheriff with discussion of Champaign County jail issues. Justin?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I brought along Captain Vogus today to chat a little bit. I really don't have a whole lot to say, and I didn't know Benjamin was going to be on the call today, and I did not ask him to say anything or anything like that. But we have some of the same issues that we've been talking about for several years now. It continues to be an issue. It really came to light with COVID. And when COVID's over, I don't know what the next thing's going to be. We're dealing with a lot of struggles right now. So I will let the captain go into a little bit more detail on anything that she thinks you need to know. But again, my goal all along is to answer questions for you, to give you my perspective as sheriff, and my thoughts going forward. But it's got to be the facilities committee and the county board that makes the ultimate decision at the end of the day. And so please make sure you ask any questions you have about facilities or anything like that I may be able to answer. Carrie? Okay, well, I know she's on. Let's just start out. Are there questions that you have about either the downtown jail or satellite jail that I may be able to answer that you either weren't part of the committee before or we just never addressed in the past?
Dustin, this is Dana. We can certainly go into that a little bit, and one of the things that we've been talking about with Carrie and yourself is basically your population numbers, where your inmates are numbered. You've got issues with the state of Illinois, who's not accepting any prisoners at this time, prisoners who have been sentenced because of COVID and other issues, I'm assuming. But if you've got those numbers, that would be great to kind of cover, to give folks an update, or any other thoughts that you may have till Carrie can join us.
Sure. So it's been a couple of days since I've looked at the numbers, but last I knew we had between 30 and 40 Department of Corrections sentenced inmates. And we, Department of Corrections is technically still accepting, though they have not accepted from us for a while. And so, you know, there for a while it was getting, they were doing quite a bit of accepting. And then with COVID protocols, they are not accepting very many inmates right now, despite a 14-day quarantine period. And we also provide vaccinations to inmates who wanted, and COVID tests and all of those types of things. Carrie, you look fine. We also are struggling with Department of Human Services and those who have found not fit to stand trial. DHS is having the same issues with COVID and things, and they're just not accepting very many inmates at this point either. And during regular times, that's during regular times, that's frustrating. And we all know that jail isn't somewhere that somebody who has mental health issues should be in the first place. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of alternatives. And so lots of things going on right now that we're working with in the jail. You know, we're seeing, we have this classification issues I've talked about before, to where we can't house certain inmates together. And so, you know, just the other day, I saw a fight where two inmates were on the second story and they tumbled down the stairs. And it's just amazing that somebody didn't get hurt in that. But, you know, and we have a full-time lieutenant who deals with classification issues, and this one even got past her. So that's how much of an issue it is in the jail as far as trying to keep people separated. And so I guess just trying to show you those things, we are at, I believe, and Carrie can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're at about 175 inmates today. That's including those IDOC inmates and the DHS inmates. The last couple of weeks, we've actually been up to about 195, which is the highest that we've been in a year and a half. And so, you know, we're just getting into the warmer months at this point, and that's always a little frustrating because people seem to be involved in activities that will increase violence during the summer months, during the warmer months. And so that's something we're looking at as well. Captain?
And we may have lost her for a moment.
I think she's back in attendees. Well, she'll need to be moved back over.
While they're hopefully getting that accomplished, I can update you on a little bit of something. Something that you will see next month regarding the satellite jail is a bid packet for replacement of HVAC system, a complete replacement of HVAC system at the satellite jail. We started work with our engineer who's putting together the documentation to be bid out. Started work today with Carrie and Chief Deputy and other correction folks to talk to them about phasing and what this really means, and how we may go about it. We would like to more or less dictate the schedule to the vendor. And it's necessary because we're going to have to shut down basically a pod at a time, or the booking area or the kitchen, which, you know, all four of those areas can't do at the same time, obviously, and stay in the building. So we're going to have to figure out how to get it done with closing down one area at a time. It could be down for 3 to 5 days, as we discussed this morning with Carrie and staff. But we're putting that together. Obviously, having the downtown to be able to move some of these folks to gives the correction folks an opportunity to, get this done and accomplished. It will be a significant benefit to our building and gives us greater control, greater redundancy should there be issues or problems down the road with any of the equipment. So, one side of the house could basically run the entire building, or 80% efficiency of the rest of the building if we have issues or problems. Currently, we really have no redundancy with our equipment, but this project will do that, plus give us more up-to-date and very high efficiency equipment. So ongoing process with the staff, and again, you'll see this next month as we bring the bid document forward to get approved to hopefully go out on the street. Carrie there?
I've had my hand raised for a hot minute, so I'm just going to jump in here. My question is broadly, I represent a district that is very suspicious of any funding towards the jail. So what I'm seeking to know a little bit more about is access to medical care, particularly how it would be impacted if we do have to move people around in the case of litigation. I guess just access to medical care in general. I've heard reports that this is done basically in a closet. So just broadly, I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I would say it's more than a closet that medical care is provided at the jail. And actually, one of our goals, have you ever toured the satellite facility, Emily?
Not yet.
So that's one of our goals for you guys. It's put a little bit behind with COVID, but I wouldn't say it's a big auditorium either. But that would be, an issue. We have full-time medical staff. We pay a lot for full-time medical staff. And that is one of the concerns if we would need to go other places, is there's a lot of places, for an example, in Piatt County that we will, if we have inmates who need administrative seg, they're police officers, something like that, who've been arrested and we can't house them with everyone else. Piatt County doesn't have a medical provider. They don't have that full-time service and things like that. I would agree that a lot of our inmates are high risk, high needs when it comes to medical issues and things like that. Every day, my correctional officers are transporting back and forth to the hospital, back and forth to medical appointments and those things. But we do have full-time medical staff that address concerns whenever they come up. Does that answer your question, or?
Yes, I guess I'm just seeking broad information. The other question that I have here, we can even get more specific, I guess. In particular, drug use in the jail and addressing the needs of those who are experiencing withdrawal symptoms. Statistics should suggest that between 60 and 80% of people that are in jail are experiencing withdrawal symptoms. And in 2016, we know that we had 3 deaths associated with withdrawal symptoms. So can you speak to that specific kind of circumstance, and maybe in the way that would be experienced in, for example, in contrast in Champaign County versus in Piatt County?
Dustin, do you want me to speak?
Yeah, sure, Captain. Thank you.
Okay, I'm actually on now. I finally got approved, I think. Something special had to happen. 2 things, that we actually have protocols, Emily, in place for withdrawal protocols. I think the best thing for us to do is to actually get you in the jail so you have a better idea of how, like the sheriff said, how things run, how the infirmary looks, and how our housing looks before we take a stance on whether we agree or disagree. I think that's very important for us to get you in if we can, and anybody else on the facilities board that maybe have not had that tour yet. But there are protocols in place for a lot of jails who don't have medical at all. We're fortunate enough to have a very good contract that immediately puts them on some form of protocol to help with their withdrawals, if that says anything.
Yeah, I'm not questioning whether or not those numbers have improved. Since 2016, we haven't had any deaths associated with those symptoms. I guess in general, what I'm looking for is the difference between services that are available to people who are in jail in Champaign County who are experiencing those symptoms versus what they would be experiencing in another county. If that makes sense.
So are you saying, do we have those services versus another county, or?
I'm clear on the fact that we do have those services and there's been a major improvement in the jail. I'm saying, again, given that the jail population in general experiences, the general population that is in the jail, between 60 and 80% are experiencing or come in with some sort of drug use in their system, right? What kind of okay, let me rephrase this then. So given those numbers, the services available to that particular population, how would that differ from, say, in Champaign County versus another county like Piatt County that's been named several times?
A lot of facilities have no medical care, so they have no protocols in place to help those people. Ours immediately have protocols in place. Plus, we have Rosecrans built into the jail to start helping them even upon release. So not only is it the treatment right when they get in, and every protocol is different for us. If it's a protocol for alcohol, if it's a protocol for a type of drug, every single protocol is specific to the type of withdrawal they may have. Nothing really has changed a whole lot since 2016. The protocols are still being used and in place, and it's the exact same company, actually. It's just, it depends on how you look at the situation and if it was a withdrawal situation or if it was a medical issue with those 2016 cases. But I think I'm having a hard time explaining it because I'm not sure if it's a program you're looking for, if it was medical treatment. Sorry, Emily, I'm not trying to skirt the question so much as answer it appropriately for you.
No, I don't think that you're skirting. I guess I'm trying to get a sense of the implications if we were to kick this can down the road and say litigation were to intervene and make us remove, inmates, et cetera.
I'm very concerned. That's one thing. Yeah, that's a very good question because that's a big concern that I have right now about moving any inmates. Right now, and Sheriff and I were going to talk tomorrow anyway, after Dana and I spoke about the upcoming HVAC project. I'm not sure any jail at this point that would take any of our inmates. And I think Ben made a good point to say, we're kind of seeing a weird situation here with COVID, but also a lot of jails can't afford medical. They can't afford some of these contracts and some of the programs that are needed that we have. And if I had to ask them, if we had a major issue with the downtown facility saying we need to move 50 some inmates, I'm not sure who would even take them at this point, especially with COVID. Hopefully by the end of the year, first of next year, we may start to see a little bit of movement from another jail. But right now I can tell you, they're going to probably tell me, nope, we're not taking your responsibility. We're not going to take your medical issues. And we're seeing that big increase. I can tell you that our numbers, the reason why I want to bring everyone in from the facilities board who has not actually seen it is so that you guys can have an understanding of how housing works and classification. They tend to want to look at the number and say you can hold 295 people. That's accurate. But right now with COVID and with the amount of mental health issues that we're facing, we are pretty much almost at capacity and we only have 176 as of today. And it's hard to explain that over the phone like this or video. And COVID's not going to hopefully last forever. I hope that someday we're back to normal. I just don't know when that's going to be. And my job is really to keep these inmates as safe as possible, whether it be from harm's way from someone else or whether it be medically. We have done a very, very good job here at Champaign County, and we've not had, and I actually hate to say it, but we have not had a huge increase or influx of COVID, mainly because of the process that we have, which is a quarantine unit, because I could make the space. Right now I have no space. And I know before I could get on here, Dana, and I'm sorry, I couldn't speak when you were asking me to, but one of our biggest issues right now is Department of Corrections. They're not taking inmates as quickly as they used to. So as of this afternoon, when I left work, we have 33 people that do not belong to Champaign County that we are holding right now. That is 33 rooms and space. Some of them are taking up one cell, some may be housed with 2 people, but they're taking up cell space that Champaign County right now cannot use. We also had, before I left this afternoon, 11 inmates that have been found unfit and have to go to a mental health hospital. That's always been dear to my heart. For those of you that don't know me, we have all this funding and the state's trying to figure out what we need to do. And part of it is the mental health crisis in the state of Illinois and across the country. We don't have the hospitals needed to care for these people. And what's happening is they're going out on the street and they are using drugs and alcohol and other things to maintain sanity, basically. Or in some cases, they're committing crimes, and a jail is not meant for these people. I've always said that. And the officers, as much as we can train them on mental health, they're not social workers, and they don't, even my own mental health staff have a hard time when they're this psychotic or they're that far beyond help. We don't force medication in the jail. We don't require them to take a medication, but they're at a point sometimes where they're a danger to themselves and society, and they can't go out. So keep that in mind. Out of the 11, I also have 7 more that I just got off the phone with the public defender's office before the call that I have concerns about, and I want them to look and trying to find them help. So right there, we have 22 inmates that could be smearing feces, that could just simply not get along with people, that they are all taking up individual cells. You know, I mean, so we got to think about, how is the jail designed? How is it currently being used? Back in 2018, when the new Bail Reform Act came out, we were hopeful that it would change some of the population in some way. For us, it really didn't make a huge difference. And that was because years ago, the judiciary system at the time tried to get out as many minor charges as they could. So when they came out with the new bail reform, we were like, man, I hope this would help us, but we really didn't think it would, because we had mostly felony pretrial sitting in jail. As of today, I looked at the number again before I left, and we currently only have 10 people sitting earning bond on bail reform out of the 176, 10.
Can you say a little bit more about that? I mean, as far as I knew, last time that I checked, I think this was like a few months ago, the number was 70% were awaiting trial, and they were out on bail. So, but
70,
those numbers have changed dramatically.
So when you say 70% are waiting trial, 70% in our jail were waiting trial, or they were pre-trial?
In this particular jail, yes, in ours.
Okay, in our jail, I would say 70 to 75%. And actually, my number today, when I looked at my daily report, we had over 100 that were waiting felony pretrial. So felony pretrial doesn't mean they're set to go to trial. It means they're going through the process of hearings, whether it be motions, things of that nature, that are on felony charges, whether it be, attempt murder, major crimes that would have them in jail. The same crimes that would most likely still keep them in jail once the new law comes out in 2 years, the new no cash bail law. But when I'm talking about the bail reform 2 years ago was put in place to get people out of jail quicker. They would earn $30 a day to get out of jail on certain charges. They had to be a certain charge. And under that charge, they would get out of jail. For some jails, that worked a lot, Emily. It worked a whole lot, because Sangamon County had a lot of people sitting in there on traffic and minor misdemeanors. When I say we have 10 people, that means out of that entire 176, we have 10 people that fell under that category that are earning money per day.
Okay, Emily, if that answers most of your questions, since we were not able to get Carrie on earlier, if she'd like to expand on any other particular issues right now, I'd like to give her the opportunity to do so.
Okay, thank you, Steve. My main thing, I guess, nothing's really changed since I started coming into these meetings years and years ago. And I know several of you have had a tour, and I just really kind of want to open that up to you guys. I know with COVID, we want to be very cautious, but I am more than willing to bring in 1 or 2 at a time and have this conversation and show the makeup of the jail, and why I feel so important that we are responsible, not only to the citizens as a sheriff's office, but we're responsible to these inmates. And, I am tired of them having to sit in a jail that I know just last week or week before, when we had the terrible rain, they were living with flooded walls, with flooded areas, because the roof is so bad, or bug issues and things that we're trying to eliminate for them. And we keep wanting to look at the cell space, and we're hoping that in 2 years, a new law will take effect and will wipe out our population, but we just don't know that. And now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in crisis mode, because if something happens at the downtown facility, I really have no place to go. I don't have a jail that will take them. I have no housing at the satellite jail, and mainly because I'm trying to keep them safe from COVID, mainly because I'm keeping them separate because of gang affiliations, things of that nature. I want you guys to know that just recently, with the judges changing, at one point, we have a judge that had they brought the fact up that they may want to start weekends again or a work release program. That concerns me because we don't have housing for that. That went away almost 6-7 years ago when they lowered our staffing and we attempted to get minor charges out of jail. They want to know if that's a way they can start a new sentencing program. We were able to push that off because of COVID, but I really don't have that type of housing to be able to establish that. So I just think it's important as we're talking about this HVAC system that they want to roll out midsummer. I don't even know where I'm going to ask these inmates to go. I don't have housing to even move them from one housing unit to another because we just don't have that extra space. So I just want you guys to think about it. And again, I know I've been kind of off the radar since my surgery last year, and I want to welcome those that are now on the new committee. And at any point, please reach out to me for clarification, or if I can explain something, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carrie. Well, if individual members of this committee want to give you a call and try and do tours of the jail, I would certainly encourage that. I'm hopeful with the upcoming drop in age requirements and underlying medical issues that more people serving on this committee who are younger will be able to get vaccinated, and hopefully will feel confident going into the jail. But as long as masks and distance protocols are in use, I don't think that's necessarily a barrier. I would be happy to go along with any other board member that's interested in going for a jail tour. I've been through both facilities multiple times and would be happy to go through and add what any kind of knowledge I have to our board members as well. But all folks on the committee, that particularly those that have not seen the jail, seriously consider, if you're comfortable with it, going through some sort of a small group tour so you can actually see what the situation is like. It is quite eye-opening, I will say. When I came on as a new board member, I was surprised. Does anybody else have any further questions at this point of either Carrie or Dustin? Okay, thank you so much for both coming tonight. Glad to see you on screen at least, and
Yes.
we will be seeing you in person, I would guess, in the very near future.
Thank you, guys.
Gary,
Right.
thank you. Dustin, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 6B, discussion and approval of the county highway maintenance metal roof replacement and Elias asphalt shingle replacement bid documents. Dana.
Okay. So hopefully everybody had a chance to pile through that 90 pages of documents. Sorry about that. So basically what's transpired is that our architect, Reese Deck and Reed, has put together a bid document to replace the metal roof that was damaged and the asphalt shingle roof that was damaged, both at County Highway and Elias. This spells out exactly how we want it done, how they're going to go about doing the bidding. So it's got basically everything in there. I did not include the 20 or 25 extra pages of diagrams on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. You wouldn't have been able to see a whole lot. They're on much larger pages. So I apologize for not having it with you, but if approved by the committee, we will go out to bid tomorrow. It'll be posted. It'll be posted on Reese Deck and Reed's website, as well as the county's. We will actively, both our partner, Reese Deck and Reed, and ourselves will be contacting potential vendors to notify them that we have a bid that's out and available. Bidders can, at no cost, download those from Reese Deck Reed's website. By doing that, we actually keep track of who's downloading and who's involved so that we can reach out and contact folks and see if they have any questions and kind of keep them apprised as we go through the process. So I've also included in the packet the schedule I shared with you, I think, last month for basically the bid work, the bidding, the development of the document, the project itself. We're looking for substantial completion by the end of September. Think that that's an easy accomplishment, even though we suspect that a number of these folks are already have busy schedules with the amount of damage and normal roof work that goes on during the course of the year. There's still lots of projects from that July 11th hail event that hit Champaign County. So there's been lots of work. Any questions about the bid? If anybody's had a chance to dig into it, if you got any questions or process, be happy to answer.
Okay, hearing none, unless someone does have questions of Dana on this, can I have a motion to approve the bid documents that have been presented to us?
So move, Taylor.
Thank you, Leah. Can I have a second?
Second, Lokshin.
Thank you, Jenny. Right, we have a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call, please?
Loxton,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Wolken, Ms. Wolken,
Yes, sorry about that.
no problem. Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Humphrey,
Yes.
Summers.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to 6C, discussion of American Rescue Plan Act. Dana has been kind enough to provide our 10-year capital asset plan. The reason I wanted this put on the agenda is just for some general discussion. There's still a lot yet in terms of information that I think we'll be getting in terms of how we can spend these dollars. The main reason that I wanted to have it on the agenda actually goes back to our discussion with Dustin about our county jail issues. As Emily's talked about, I know you folks have community members that are very concerned, and when you talk about doing work at the jail, they aren't necessarily going to be supportive of this. I'm not sure in terms of infrastructure work what will actually qualify, but I do know that part of the reason for this Act's passage was to address issues related to COVID. And we certainly have significant issues at our jail with relation to COVID in terms of prisoner separation, in terms of a whole plethora of different areas that are impacted by the crowded space. So I wanted to have some general discussion with our committee in terms of where you were at as individual representatives of our community members in at least looking at utilizing some of these dollars to address some of the issues at the jail. Again, this is just very preliminary. We don't even know what we can actually spend some of these dollars on. There'll be guidance that will be coming down the road from the feds, I am quite certain. But I'm happy to be quiet and listen to individual members talk about where their positions are on this. Please.
My major concern, my understanding of ARP funding, the American Rescue Plan funding, is that we need to establish that this is a problem that was exacerbated or created by the pandemic. There is no problem that is better documented than our jail problem, like for the past decade. So if we're going to justify funds used in that way, I struggle to imagine an issue that would face more scrutiny than us spending money on the jail.
Well, we have the crowding issue right now because we can't move prisoners out because of COVID, Emily. So I think that probably meets the description to a T, at least in that regard. In terms of the manner in which we would address that, I'm open to other suggestions and certainly open to further guidance from the feds and what they will permit us to spend the dollars on. How about you, Stan Harper? You got anything to chime in on this?
Do we see the hands raised? I see
I'm not, okay, Jordan, excuse me. I'm looking up.
I didn't know. I was like, is this
Jordan,
one where
go
we
ahead.
actually raise our hands or no?
No, go ahead, Jordan.
I mean, I echo a lot of Emily's concerns when it comes to like, there are certain things we can do with this money, legal or not, that would still be like, especially for our caucus, would be detrimental. But I do think there is some room there that, people who are very much so against, building more cells, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of safety, things that we can use this money for that would allow us to maybe open up some of the current cells there that maybe aren't being utilized properly because of safety concerns. Certainly some of the more, they seem minor, but like they're causing a lot of problems for our efforts to keep people separated and in proper COVID safe zones. So I'd be interested in looking at, obviously in the future, what is allowed with that particular item, in terms of what kind of things we are allowed to do in the jail. My hope would be that we might be able to use this perhaps to streamline some of the more important public safety, inmate safety items. Like I would love to see some of the things that, we know when you visit the jail, they're like, oh, that's really dangerous. Floor tiles, things like that are already on our agenda, that are already like technically being planned out, that maybe are still put off for several years from now because of how we've had to kind of piecemeal plan this out. But I would really love to know what the limits are on this. And I would like to avoid, if possible, anything that would be like, oh, now we can house more prisoners. No, let's try and make sure that when we do these corrections, maybe we can make sure that the ones we do have are being taken care of properly.
Jordan, I'll just interject that a tour of the jail will answer some of those questions with regard to prisoner distancing and utilization of space. Because it's,
I haven't visited since
quite
well
the
before COVID.
But I understand, and there may be areas in terms of the floor tile, that issue was at the downtown jail, and it's one that I don't think is really, I think that would be a wasteful use of our dollars at this point. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, but
Yeah, that's probably true. Yes, I get those two mixed up a little bit.
we have these tours. I think we'll all be on the same page. Leah, I'm sorry, your hand was up as well. Please go ahead.
Okay, I was after Jordan anyway, so you're perfect. As far as what we could do with it, I mean, obviously, I don't know how much this would cost, but I could see maybe somehow adding on like a smaller pod wing, if possible, just like an area of smaller pods, because we have the 30 people pods right now, which is way too big for any sort of isolation.
Yep.
If we could do like a section of smaller pods, they could be used during pandemics for isolation, medical needs, that sort of thing. And I don't mean isolation like in jail, right? I mean like a medical isolation, obviously. And then in between pandemics, which hopefully we don't see another one, right? But you never know. They could be used for things like medical or other distancing issues, where we need to keep people, certain members apart or that sort of thing, so it could be a little bit repurposed. I could see going towards something like that, maybe as a way to use this to address the needs that we have from the pandemic and then be able to use it moving forward as well.
Thank you. That's certainly, I think certainly in terms of the ability to isolate prisoners individually is one that Dustin had talked about and Carrie had talked about with regard to folks that are there for both criminal activities and mental health activities as well, because they really don't have that space available at the satellite jail. If you
exactly
they're holding folks in holding cells at the entry point. That's all.
Yeah, and from what I understand is that the downtown jail is being used for a lot of the mental health issues, because they have they're better able to isolate people there, or separate people, I should say. I keep using the word isolate because we've been on isolation for so long. But, it could be that we use this space if I don't know if we could even do it, but if we did get this space, we could use it to finally close the downtown jail. That would also be something potential in the future. So that's all my thoughts for now.
Thank you. Stan, thank you for being patient with me.
That's quite all right, Steve. I sit there and listen to Dustin and Carrie. We have a facility that tries to offer medical help where surrounding counties don't offer anything. Going back through past administrations in the sheriff's department, the segregation from rival gangs. I don't know if you were on this committee then, Steve, but Sheriff Walsh had to take an inmate, which he would not tell us where it was, to a different county because it was such a strong rivalry gang deal that they couldn't be anywhere near each other. So it's problems that we have to look at, and we cannot keep this downtown facility. I mean, we know the hazards and the possible lawsuits coming out of that facility. I mean, if that's one good thing that comes out of this COVID, and maybe Leah's right, maybe we downsize a little bit what we were wanting, but we were trying to offer classroom facilities, more library space, more visitation space, more mental health space, because right now it's a whole state problem. Hospitals aren't stepping up, but some of these people can't be. I'm going to worry about the public safety first. I mean, when they have problems, that's terrible, but hopefully we'd be in a position to help some. But we have to do something. We've been discussing this issue for 8.5 years that I've been there. And we're just waiting for the one big one to happen at the downtown facility if we don't start doing something. What'd Carrie say? There's over 100 or roughly 100 people there on pre-trial felony charges. Well, those people aren't going to be out running the streets. You got a felony charge, you're not going to be running the streets. So it's a housing segregation issue that we have to look at. Ask me questions. I don't know if I can answer them, but there's where I stand. So.
Okay, thank you, Stan. Yeah, I understand the need to be careful and, excuse me, let me start from the top. I understand the desire of our board to be concerned and make sure that we are not unnecessarily incarcerating people. Absolutely need to be aware of that. But we also need to be aware of the safety of the people that we are incarcerating. And that falls on our shoulders as elected officials as well. So hopefully, if some folks are willing to do a jail tour, I'll be happy to go along with you. As I said, when I was talking earlier, I think a tour of the jail, particularly the satellite jail, and the limitations that are there because of the way the structure is physically laid out, will become more apparent as to why the idea that some folks in the community have that we can simply close the downtown jail and move everybody over to the satellite jail and all will be fine. That's not a real picture of how we would need to incarcerate prisoners safely in Champaign County. Anyway, again, I didn't expect us to come to any conclusions. There's still a lot of guidance that's going to be coming out of DC in terms of how these dollars can be spent. Maybe some of this will not be applicable. But I think as a board, and particularly as a committee, we need to be able to at least have an open-eyed look at what our options are, because we have 2 years to spend this money. And we're talking about $40 million. And I don't know about you folks, but for me, the magnitude of spending that amount of money is very difficult for me. I mean, we're dwarfing our county board budget.
Yeah, if I could add a little bit there, Steve, and I'll
Go
get
ahead.
off in.
Go ahead.
But please, like Captain Bogus said, and Dustin, all you new members, do take the tour. I mean, I've been through there, Steve. I think Mr. Gauss has been through them. I think Jody. It will open your eyes. We have closet space in the satellite jail that we're using for office space. That's a picture of the overcrowding we're having. We're using closet space for the staff to use as office space.
So we're having an open discussion here. And I've had my hand raised for a minute. I think, yeah, as Leah maybe pointed out, like maybe my hand is kind of blending into my,
I'm not seeing it on your screen, so I apologize, Emily.
No, you're totally fine. Since we're having an open discussion here, I guess I just wanted to put my concerns kind of on the map. I wonder, well, first I want to note, although I have not visited the jail, I'm not illiterate to the issue. I mean, I've looked at the medical complaint forms that were obtained by FOIA. I understand that people with broken bones are sleeping on concrete slabs. Like I'm not illiterate to this. But what I did want to note is that the thing that troubles my thinking on this the most is this is just 2 years, and 70% of this population will shift. So investing in the jail is something that I think about a lot because we are ending cash bail in these next 2 years. And secondly, I wanted to add that demolishing a jail, again, I'm kind of playing lawyer here, but I wonder, that seems to be even more dubious use of American Rescue Plan funds. So again, there's no easy answer to these concerns. I just wanted to put them out there to this committee.
Actually, I had never entertained the idea of using the funds for demo. At least that had not ever been my intention to express anything along those lines. The reason we're having this discussion is to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to talk about options that we may have moving forward. And I appreciate folks that have spoken and
Yeah, Jim's got his hand up, Steve.
Go ahead, Stan.
Oh, I just said Jim had his hand up, that's all.
I'm sorry. I'm only seeing so many on the screen. Okay, Jim, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I was in the middle of, my wife brought home supper, so that's why my camera's been off and I wanted to let everybody else speak. Yeah, just a comment that, in 2 years, we may go away from cash bail, but that's not going to get away from folks that are sitting around waiting on felony convictions. And I mean, we don't have, we're always at the mercy of the state, both DHS and IDOC. And I mean, this problem we're having with them taking folks that they should be taking, it's not new. I mean, COVID has exacerbated it, but it really has been a problem for quite some time. I visited the jail in 2017, and I mean, we never even understood, we didn't even know what SARS-2 was. So it was not an issue then, and yet we were having IDOC and DHS not taking any folks. So yeah, I'd love to say that the jail population is going to go down, but we have a responsibility as a county board to not kick this down the road continually and do something about this. And COVID brought some very big realities that we're not doing the best we can do. Kudos to Dustin and Captain Bogus. They've done a fantastic job because we haven't had a COVID outbreak in our jail. But that doesn't mean they haven't had to do extraordinary things to keep that from happening. We've got an opportunity to use this money for the betterment of folks that are really, I mean, underserved for sure. And, we need to take care of the folks that have been put in our charge. legally, and we just it's our responsibility. So I think we need to use best practices here. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Well, unless anybody else has anything to add, I think I've accomplished what I wanted to do, which was just to bring it out there and let people talk about it. We'll certainly have further discussions, both as a committee and as a board on this. But unless someone else has more comments that they'd like to make, let's move on to the air quality study for regional planning at Brookings. Hearing none, then let's move forward. Dana, could you go to that item D?
You bet. So included in your packet was the full report from OEHS, Occupational Environmental Health Solutions. We were contacted by staff at RPC recently that some of their staff are having problems with something that may be in the air in Pod 100 of Brookings. Yes, most of their staff have not been working from the office. So this has been apparently kind of ongoing over the last year or so. We took that seriously, hired OEHS to come in and do some testing. We actually let RPC kind of tell us or guide us which areas within their space. You didn't ask for which staff member, but what areas where maybe those staff members were at. So they identified those areas. So we really emphasized several different types of testing. We had air samples tested over a 24-hour period. We did 3 of those within that space, and those containers were sent back to the lab to produce results. And then we took swab testing. We obviously took temperatures and humidity levels. We took swabs tests within basically the 3 offices or cubicle areas that were identified by RPC. Within, actually above their ceiling and below the roof deck, we took some samples. And then we took some samples from the HVAC, the air handlers, the RTUs that are on top of Pod 100 that furnish air to those areas that were identified by RPC staff members. The results were published in this report. Positive for us, not so positive for RPC. We really didn't find a tremendous amount. The 2 things that were found, the air quality was found to be fine, not hardly any different than what we take outside, and we always take an ambient sample so they know what's outside, because our air handlers are taking in fresh air from the outside and conditioning in it as it's being delivered into the facility. So you are getting what's outside. So in the 2 RTU units, they found some yeast in a very low concentration. As part of our normal protocols in the spring and the fall, we do normal cleaning of the air handlers. So we'll be cleaning those this month, paying particular attention to the fin tubing and the drip pans below the fin tubes, which is where they took their swab tests. Yeast was not in such a high level that it is a concern, but just basically noted. The other thing that was rather interesting was the type of alcohol that was noticed and picked up in the air quality results. Basically, that's the same alcohol that's produced and distributed in hand sanitizers. The hand sanitizers that RPC has put out, it's not in a push button form, but it's in an automatic deployment. It's got a battery, electric eye. You put your hand underneath it. It spits a delivered measured amount out. Sometimes staff members pull their hand away before it is all in their hand, or they drop it. Oftentimes you can walk by and the electric eye will trigger and it'll come out. So we did pick up alcohol in a small dose. Those were the 2 real findings of the report. Basically, what the report did show is that it's an extremely dry space. The humidity levels in most buildings should be in about a 40 to 45% humidity, which provides them a little more comfortable environment. The day that we did our testing, my office was 16%. I've got a humidity gauge here and temperature gauge. They found most of the RPC space was in the 30% or 31%, which is extremely dry. What kinds of things that you will find from that is if you've got contacts, your eyes will dry out, and so you have itchy eyes. Dries the mucus, the membrane out in your nose and your throat. So if you got any type of ear, nose, and throat problem, allergies, it can exaggerate the situation. So people can get headaches. So how do we try and fix that? Well, during the winter, it's really hard because we're pulling in outside air, which is at a really low humidity level. I think we'll have a conversation with RPC about them adding some additional humidifiers that deliver humidity, moisture into their space. That will help, especially during the winter months when it's extremely dry in their space. We don't seem to have as big a problem during the summer when we're pulling in more of that outside air that's a high humidity level, but at the same time, we're conditioning that air to a cooler temperature, so we're actually pulling the moisture out. So we're kind of continuing the process of creating dry space. So it's a difficult problem to deal with when you can't introduce water into the air as it's being brought into the building. Our air handlers for Pod 100 are on the roof, and there's just no way of putting any moisture into that air that's being forced into Pod 100. So we'll try and work through these issues with RPC and hopefully able to give some of their staff, at least who are experiencing the problems, some relief. But at the same time, I felt pretty good about where we were, what the findings were for Brookins here at this building. This is the third report that we've done here at Brookins in the last 4 years. A year ago, GIS in Pod 400 asked us to do a similar report, and we had similar findings. And probably 3 or 4 years ago, we did Pod 200. So we've got a pretty good idea what's in the building. We have since replaced some of the air handlers and chillers on this building. Pod 200 is all new. Pod 300 is new. As part of the HVAC replacement and repair from the hail damage, Pod 100 is getting basically 10 new rooftop units, which will take place, and you'll actually see that bid document next month's meeting. They probably will not get replaced until August or September. But again, they're situated on the roof. It'll be very difficult to add any type of water, humidity into that air from the roof. So we'll have to focus again with RPC on what they can do with small units within their space. Any questions?
Thank you, Dana. I'm relieved that they didn't come up with any significant findings. It's unfortunate there are the humidity issues that are there, but perhaps those can be addressed, like you mentioned, with some smaller units inside the space. But, I was happy to see that there wasn't anything significantly difficult that we were putting people at risk. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Anything with regard to the air quality study? Okay, moving on. Other business, we've got a semi-annual review of closed sessions. State's Attorney's Office has deemed that all the minutes should remain confidential. Trying to say, we don't need to vote on, do we need to vote on maintaining them?
I think we do.
Okay, all right. Then let's have a roll call. unless anybody has any specific questions, we do not have minutes before us to review, but the State Attorney's Office has reviewed all the minutes from 2005 to 2018. Hearing none, then we'll go to a roll call to approve keeping those minutes closed.
Luxon,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Wilkin,
Yes.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Humphrey,
Yes.
Summers.
Yes. Okay, we have no presiding officers report. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 4th. Designation of items to be replaced on the consent agenda. I believe it would be item 6B. And unless anyone has anything else they would like to add,
Steve, we don't need to put the approval of the roof project on the consent because this is just a bid document.
just a bid process. Okay,
The bids, once they come back and we open them up, will come
Right.
back to the facility committee and then to the full board. So
rookie board chair. I'm making notes on my agenda. Thank you. All right. Unless anybody has anything they would like to add at this point, then we would stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Everybody.
Have a
appreciate
good
your time.
night.
Good night.